Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I say Shabbat, Shalom, not Shabbat, Shalom, but Shalom, Shalom. Welcome everybody to our Torah study on tonight. We certainly welcome you into the house of Yah. Those who are in the house here and those who are joining us online. We welcome you to the house of Yah. Could you just hold on for 1 second? So we say shalom, shalom. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us at the house of Yah. We are about to go into a feast. The fall feast of the 7th month is about to begin. And one thing I want to bring out is the new moon and the new month and what is supposed to be done on that particular day in the book of Psalms, chapter number 81, and starting verse number 2, Psalms 81 and 2. And it says, "Take a psalm and bring hither the timbrel, the pleasant harp with the psaltery. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. For this was a statute for Yasharel and a law of the Elohim of Jacob." So something that he had established with the children of Yasharel, a law that he established with them. And when he gave them statutes, laws, and commands, it was something that was supposed to continue. It was something that was supposed to be obeyed and kept because it was a part of the covenant. And I know that, you've got the old saying, that's Israel, the nation of Israel. We're not Israel. We don't keep the laws. We don't, so all this, the Christian mindset. There's the Christian mindset, and it keeps us from being obedient unto the Most High Yah. If you continue to have that mindset, then you're not going to be obedient unto Him, and that's going to be something that you have to answer for when you see Him. It's if I'm ignorant of something, then I can't acknowledge it. I mean, that's what ignorance is. I just don't know about something. I'm just ignorant of that. But when we're in the day and time that we're in now, and He's awakening and He's calling His people, and it's kind of like the valley of dry bones, and the prophet Yekazakal, the 37th chapter of Yekazakal, which is Ezekiel, and it says that he was supposed to prophesy unto those dry bones. And so we see that going on now, where he is actually waking up Israel. So if he wakes you up and you start to get an understanding of what you're supposed to do and you refuse it, then you have to give an account for that. That's different than just being ignorant. Hey, I was just ignorant. I didn't even know. But now that I know, then it's up to us to be obedient unto Torah. And I just want to show one thing, the reason why uh, many of us, and especially in the Christian doctrine, why we don't keep the Torah. This is and I know it says Constantine's Creed, but I call this the Christian Creed because let's just look at what it says, and then you can answer that for yourself or not. Let's look at what it says. If if you believe or if you renounce all customs, rites, legalism, unleavened breads, sacrifices of lambs of the Hebrews, and all other feasts of the Hebrews, sacrifices, prayers, aspirations, purifications, sanctifications, and propitiations, and fast and new moons, and Sabbaths, and superstitions, and hymns, and chants, and observances, and synagogues. Now, observances, if you renounce observances, that's what we're getting ready to observe. We're getting ready to observe the beginning of the seventh month. And the reason why people renounce it or don't want to observe it is because they say it's done away with and we no longer have to do it. But that's in this creed. That doesn't come from the Bible. It doesn't come from the Bible for you to renounce it. I don't care when it's a new moon. I don't care when it's a new month. I don't. People who don't understand the the seasons, the feasts, the years, the new months, and things like, you're not gonna understand what's going on in this last day and what is about to happen, because he gives understanding, enlightenment, and revelation in his Torah. He even says it. It's in his law. It's in his Torah where you're going to get understanding, where you're going to get revelation. You're not going to get it through the commentary of heathens who this book wasn't even written to. It wasn't written to them. This book was written to Israel, to Yasharel. He gave it to his people, and then he sent his people out into every nation. And those who join themselves to Yasharel and come into Yasharel, then those are the ones that are going to be in the wilderness, that's going to be there with the people of Yasharel. But as he says here, observances, synagogues, absolutely everything, and you probably could replace that Jewish word with Hebrew, actually everything Hebraic, every law, rite, custom, and if afterwards I shall wish to deny, return to Jewish superstitions, or shall be found eating with the Yahudim, or feasting with them, or secretly conversing and condemning the Christian religion. This is coming from a Roman emperor. A Roman emperor. Instead of openly confuting them and condemning their vain faith, then let the trembling of Cain and the leprosy of Gehazi cleave to me, as well as the legal punishments to which I acknowledge myself liable. I don't know if we see the gravity of that, but he actually knows that there's going to be a punishment and judgment on him. He's acknowledging that for forsaking everything that's Israel and all their custom rites. He knows that there's a punishment of judgment coming on him. He even knows. And may I be an anathema in the world to come. That's after he transitions, and in that next world, anathema. And may my soul be set down with Satan and the devils. So everybody that says, Torah's done away with, y'all keeping those feasts, you guys don't have to do none of that, that comes from this creed. And the one who wrote this creed knows what his end is going to be, and that he is going to be judged with Satan and the devils. That's why I say, when we acknowledge, once we understand what's going on, once we understand Torah and we start to follow Torah, if we continue in the path that these people are in, then you're gonna meet judgment. And I know we got people that are saved, sanctified, full of the Holy Ghost. Believe me, I know it. I know it when people say that. But what is truth? Truth are facts. If I say, oh, she raised her hand, all right, she's going to give me the answer. What is truth? Truth are facts. And so when you look at a fact and understand a fact, then you're understanding truth. And I'm saying all this and laying this out because we're coming up on the seventh month, the seventh month. And it's a time, how do we, now every new moon, like it says here, I'm going to read it again, Psalms 81, 2 and 3, Psalms chapter 81, verse 2 and verse 3 and verse 4. I'm going to read it again. Take a psalm and bring hither the timbrel, the pleasant harp, and the psaltery. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed. So we're getting ready to go into a new moon, or instead of a new moon, you know what they can say? A new month. At the beginning of the month, the first day of the month. You know, instead of saying the first day of the month or the new month, he says the new moon, because they would follow the lunar skies to determine their days and their months. We follow the Greco-Roman, and so at 12 o'clock a.m., what did they say? That's a what? A new day. At 12 o'clock a.m., new day. Not with us Hebrews, that the night precedes the day. So at evening, when the sun goes down, that's when you start a new day. When the sun goes down, you start a new day. When the sun comes up, that's the second half to that day. And you wait for the sun to go down again. Up, it's a new day. And then when you follow the moon at the new moon, it's the new month. So we're coming up on a new month. This particular month is the seventh month on the Hebrew calendar. It's the seventh month on the Hebrew calendar. And like he says here, at the time appointed on our solemn feast day, because every new moon was a feast day. Now, this particular new moon coming up in the seventh month carries a bit more significance than all the others, because we're coming up on a commanded feast of Teruah, which is what? When I say Teruah, what am I saying? Trumpets. Trumpets. The new moon is the one that's coming up, is the Feast of Trumpets. How many of us know that our Messiah, who the world calls JC, Jesus Christ, how many of us know that Yahushua Mashiach talked about trumpets? He talked about the trumpets. How many? Has anybody read Matthew 24? Maybe Matthew. I mean, we've read it quite a few times, right? Matthew 24. I mean, our Messiah brings out trumpet. There's a significance with teruah or trumpets. How many of you know that Shaul talked about trumpets? He talked about trumpets. Because when we recognize teruah or trumpets and we want to keep that feast, we are preparing ourselves for what? How many people know what we're preparing ourselves for? Feast of Atonement, the trumpets. What's the significance of the trumpets when the trumpet was to sound? Huh? Announcement. They would announce that a king is coming. It was a time of an announcement. It's a time of okay, get ready, everybody. You know, it's a warning. Hey, get ready, y'all. You know, now when we have our highest office in the land, and when he sets his schedule and he prepares to come out this way, and I can remember when I was working at Alcoa, Arconic, when President Obama came through there, and they had his route staked out from the time he landed in the airport to where he went on 74, got off 74, went down, you know, I think it was Grant Street or State Street, all the way out to Alcoa and everything, and then his route going back into the air. I mean, they had people on that route. And even when it was set that he was coming to our facility, there was Secret Service people that was there throughout the plant, walking around, scoping things out, setting everything up. That's kind of like what the Feast of Trumpets, it is a time to prepare or get ready or make the path straight. Hey, here comes a warning. Here comes an announcement. The announcement is our king is coming. Our king is coming. And so this was a national holy day that the nation of Israel was supposed to keep and recognize, because like we see in verse number 4 here, what does he say? For this was a statute for Yasharel, a law of Elohim of Yaakov, the Elohim of Yaakov. It was something that he gave. I'm going to say this. He did not give it to the Greeks. He didn't give it to the Romans. Don't y'all know, if you read through Psalms, there's a couple of places it talks about the land of Ham. You know who, when they talked about the land of Ham, what were they referring to? What do we call it today? The land of Ham. What do we, in the Bible it says the land of Ham, but if today we wouldn't say the land of Ham, what would we call it today? Canaan? No. The land of Ham. That's what we would call it today. We call it Africa. That Africa is the land of Ham. And it's mentioned several times in the book of Psalms. And especially if you read Psalm, I'll give you one chapter right off, Psalm 78. I think it talks about the land of Ham. So that's saying like Africa. We would call it Africa today. But he did not give it to Africa. Don't y'all know, the folks, Africans were all over the place. Egyptians, Ethiopians, Canaanites. When you say that, those are all Africans. They're all African nations. But he didn't give it to them. He didn't give it to the Greeks. He didn't give it to the Romans. Abba Yah, it's not, like the color of somebody's skin or something. That's not what it is. It's not the color of your skin. He made a covenant with Yasharel. That's where it lies. There was a lot of dark-skinned folk. They was all over the face of the earth. Because, see, sometimes when you talk about Yasharel, people get into this color thing. And that's not what the Most High Yah is dealing with. He ain't because I'm telling you, there's a whole bunch of dark folks ain't Israel. They're not Israel, so it's not the color. It's actually the bloodline that who came from it. He made a covenant with Yasharel. He made a covenant with Yasharel. And those 12 sons of Yasharel, 12 sons of Jacob. And I still, I don't know how many people watch News and Views of the Elders, but we had our podcast on the first day of the week. And Zakim Bateman had made mention of some things. I think Elder Gerard said he was watching. Anybody else had seen News and Views of the Elders? And yeah, he watched it this evening. Yeah. He was good. Zakim Bateman was good. Yeah. It was because I was sitting there listening to him, and then after we went off the air, I said, "Wait a minute, we got to talk about something." Wait a minute, I was asking him questions about some of the things he said, But it's just fascinating what Yah has done and what Yah is doing. It's just, I don't think we have the mental bandwidth to receive everything that Yah has for us. A lot of times because we doubt a lot of things. Anybody that has a doubting heart or doubt or doesn't think Yah, I don't believe that. Well, then you're not going to believe. Why would he speak to an unbeliever? He even says in Revelation 21:8, what does he say? Yeah, unbelievers, the fearful and unbelieving. Folks just simply don't believe. And that's going to cost them. It's going to when I can go to Torah and we can read Torah and you can show me plainly in Torah and then you reject it, well, then you have to deal with that. You're going to be judged on that. And if you got questions, ask the questions, because there's some things like I said just this past first day of the week. Hey, wait a minute, Tom, don't go where I got some questions. If you got questions, you got to get that's where you gain knowledge. You gain knowledge through the questions that you ask, because you wouldn't ask a question to something you know, unless you want to be facetious. Or sometimes I have to rhetorically ask questions. I mean, I know the answer, but I want to ask the question just to see where everybody's at. And that's what an instructor will do, a teacher will do, is ask questions. Is the students picking it up? But normally you don't ask a question to something that you know already. You're asking a question because you're seeking knowledge. I don't know about this, so tell me about this. Give me more that I can study. Tell me more about this so I can learn, so I can be where you're at. And that's what a moray, a zakin, a moray, a teacher, that's what they do. They want to bring people to where they're at. They're not intimidated by people knowing what they know, or even knowing more than what they know. And I mean, if you got teachers and leaders out there and they're offended because, or intimidated because you know as much as them or more, then they're not going to be an effective leader, because a real leader and a teacher wants everybody to be where they're at. So so we're coming up next week, and we will not be here a week from today. We will not be here, but I am working on, and I'll probably have more answers to people's questions, where we're going to be on a week from tomorrow, which will be celebrating the Feast of Teruah. And so it'll probably be outside, weather permitting. And if the wedding is not permitting, trying to get a shelter, we'll be under the shelter. But I've already looked at a forecast a week from now. It's supposed to be sunny in the 70s. Now, does that mean it's going to be sunny in the 70s? A storm could come through. Mainly, I mean, there's a storm pushing up from the Gulf of Mexico right now, getting ready to hit the panhandle of Florida. And they said it's going to push on through Georgia and just going to eventually come on up to the Midwest. So we might see remnants of it. But I'm hoping that it'll be calm and quiet in the 70s. I'm just following the forecast. And so we will be outside. Let's go to, I'm going to say more about that as we go through here. But let's go to Leviticus chapter 23 and verse number 23. Leviticus 23, verse number 23. And when we talk about Teruah, because I want to go to, there's a couple places that Shaul brings out Teruah. And Yahusha talked about the Teruah. The Feast of Teruah? No, they were talking about what's going to happen when we hear the Teruah from the Shamayim. You know, because it is going to be, I mean, we're practicing now. We're practicing. Even when they came out of Egypt and they was at that mountain, and Most High Yah said, I'm going to come down and visit you. I mean, the earth was shaking, the mountain was shaking, it was on fire and smoke, and they heard something from the shaman sounded like a trumpet that wouldn't stop, you know, and his voice and what he was saying. And so when you look at a Teruah and a Teruah feast, it's almost like his voice. It's his voice. And didn't he tell the prophet Yashayahu, Isaiah, they call him, in the 58th chapter? He says, lift up your voice like a trumpet, like Teruah. Lift up your voice like Teruah, which means you're supposed to sound it loud and long. Because you got folks that ain't going to believe you. Does that mean you put the shofar down, they don't believe you? Oh, no. Yeah, I gotta keep blowing the shofar. I gotta keep doing it. We have to keep doing it even though people don't believe, because it's practice, because the day is coming where he's going to sound that Teruah, and if you're not ready, I mean, we're going through our practice right now. And so let's look at this, Leviticus 23 and 3. And I hope everybody can hear me well on the platforms out there. I hope you can hear me well. Leviticus 23:23. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, speak unto the children of Yasharel, saying, in the 7th month, in the first of the month, shall ye have a Shabbat, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahuwah. Notice now, there's several things. The blowing of the trumpets or the shofar, which wasn't just and that's it. It was the continual. Well, who's going to be able to? Well, everybody, you tired of blowing? Let's get somebody else. You getting tired of blowing? Let's get somebody else. Now, Abba Yah is putting a talent in our sons to blow them shofars. Because I can think about 3 of them right off the top of my head. One of them is my grandson. I didn't teach him. He picked it up and started blowing on it. And we got Robert, we got Noah. Nobody taught them. They got the trumpet and start blowing those shofars. We got shofar players here that can blow that, sound that alarm, blow that shofar. So we have one of them that get to blowing. I'm tired of it. Get somebody. Come on. We got more. We got more shofar players here. You just keep blowing that shofar. It says the blowing of the shofar, blowing of the trumpets, the blowing of the teruah, because it was a continuous thing. Now, we do have, and I plan on getting a campsite for us. It'll most likely be Scott County Park, and I'm going to try to get a shelter, and we're going to have picnic tables there. We'll have a grill there. There'll be electricity there, and so we can have our feast. It's a time for us to feast. This is a time for us to rejoice, as we'll see that here, rejoice and be glad in it. Because is that all right, Akoti? No. We're not camping. No, this is just a 1-day feast. No. That's why I'm trying to get a shelter. And so you just pull up. Yeah. All right. And that's what in Jerusalem. That's what they would do. They go to the rooftop, or they'll go out on the street, or in the back of their house. I mean, that's what they would do. But you have people from out of town that would come in, and they would set up their tents around, Jerusalem. But those who lived in Jerusalem, I'm just set my tent up right over here on top of my roof, because mainly it was just preparing a sukkah. And you've heard me say this: they had to build a sukkah and prepare a sukkah because they expected a visitor. I'm just wondering who that is. who you expect the tabernacle, which, I mean, because we know that, he's going to come and tabernacle with us. But a Sukkot is the whole feast. A sukkah is your individual place. And so we got the trumpets, and then the trumpets is to sound the alarm to let us know. Now, we were supposed to, every new moon, every first day of the month, we're supposed to blow the shofar. But this particular month was different. It's special. This 7th month is special. Now, they had in the promised land, the land that flows with milk and honey, the land of Canaan, you have more than one harvest depending on what you're planting. And we start to learn to plant, and we get there's different times where what we're planting brings a harvest. And so you would have the harvest at the beginning of the year, and which is around first fruits time, unleavened bread. You have that harvest, and then you had another harvest around Shabbat, but it wasn't as big of a harvest as you have in the fall. Now, what do they call that? We just had a full moon. What they call it? The harvest moon. Remember, we just had it just a couple of days ago, and it was big up in the sky and everything. And because when that lets you know when the moon, that light got brighter, got closer to the earth, it lets you know this is the fall. And usually after that, what happens? The temperatures start to drop, things start to change. But it was the fall harvest moon. And so everything, there's a lot of indication, there's a lot of stories, a lot of things behind it to prepare us, because this was the fall harvest, the fall feast, and so you had a special time. The 7th month was a special month. 7. Wonder why 7? Why the 7th month? He even says the 7th month. The 7th month, just like there's 7-day sequence, just like there's 7. I mean, he deals a lot with 7. So this particular month was very special, and we should recognize it. He wanted us to recognize it. So you had the blowing of the shofar, and it was a 1-day feast. I want to go to there's different times where the shofar was blown, and it was always a time for rejoicing. And this is a feast to rejoice. It's also a time to be in the 7th month here. It was a time to prepare. It was a time to prepare. And so the sounding of the trumpet at this time in the 7th month, something was coming up. There was something more unique about this month as opposed to the previous months. And after the sounding of the trumpet, and then we look at our next week on Thursday, and I'll probably be out there during the day, getting everything set up during the day, and just waiting for everybody to come out, because at sundown the feast will be over. So it's from the time the sun comes up on October, what is that, 3rd? When the sun comes up, that's the sounding of the shofar. That's the feast day. And so you have the sounding of the shofar during the feast day. And like he says here, in the 1st of the month, ye shall have a Shabbat, a memorial of blowing of the trumpets, a holy convocation. That holy convocation means we're supposed to come together. Now, I know a lot of people I'm calling a convocation. Well, Abba Yah already called them. He called the convocations. He told us when we were supposed to have a solemn feast, a solemn convocation. It's already printed out in Torah, but we have people today think that they can call a holy convocation at their convenience. We're going to call a holy convocation in the summertime when a lot of kids are out of school and, people take vacations. Most people take vacations in the summer, not the winter. So we're going to call a holy convocation. Has nothing to do with Torah and the Most High Yah. It's for their convenience. Their convenience. And so one thing that when we go through this, I want you to keep in mind, especially look at this holy convocation. We're going to come back, but I want to go to Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, and verse number 25. Hebrews 10:25. Notice now, this is a book written to the Hebrews. The Hebrews understood what we're talking about right now. Remember, it was Constantine that says, I ain't got nothing to do with it. I'm denouncing all of it. It was Constantine that. We seen that, right? That happened in 325 A.D. United States of America wasn't even thought of. It wasn't even thought of. I mean, he said that way back then, and it carried throughout the Christian church. People thought, I'm a Christian, now I'm a Christian. I don't have to do all this. But he says right here, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some, because people had stopped assembling. When he says a holy convocation, that means to assemble. I want my people to come together. And when we come together at his beckoning, when he tells you, I want you to keep this, then if his people that he chose and they keep it, then it is Kodesh, or set apart. It's set apart. So when he says holy convocation, it's a set apart convocation. I didn't give it to nobody but to Yasharel. And maybe that's what got Constantine all set up, all mad. You didn't give it to me, so I don't have nothing to do with it. No, you're supposed to join with Yasharel. I mean, it was commanded for Yasharel to keep it. Now, I do see in the book of Acts, and studying the book of Acts, I seen where Shaul had told, I don't know if it was Galatia or one place, Ephesus, wherever he was at, and he told them, hey, I got to time out, I got to take a break, I have to go back to Jerusalem for the feast. But he didn't compel them to go with him. So you had the Gentiles where he did not compel them to go, but he says, I got to go. Because to Shaul, it was a commanded feast. He knew about it. He knew it. He knew what it says. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some. But what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to exhort one another, and so much the more as you see this day approaching. As you see the day approaching. So we should be admonishing one another. Hey, Teruah's coming. Hey, y'all, last Teruah, you know what? We had a good time last Teruah, I was in Indianapolis. And so, but when we see the day approaching, it should be, you know, it should be like, because we used to get really excited when it was council time. And we had council time 3 times a year. Or it was a convention time. Man, I got to get ready for the convention. You go to the convention. Go to the convention. Man, got no attire. I got to get a new robe. I got to get new. Get your threads on. And we got to go to the convention. I mean, all the talk, all the hoopla, all the preparation, all the build up. And he says that we should be doing that, and so much the more. I can't denounce this. I got to build this up. Hey, we should be talking about this. He says, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching. Now, I know a lot of times people say, well, we see the day of the return of our Messiah. He's going to return and gather us, which he is. But here he's talking about, as you see the feast times come and you see these days approaching, there should be some excitement generated in you. It shouldn't be, oh, man, I miss a day of work, I miss a day of pay. If that's how you feel, then you shouldn't do it, because Yah knows your heart. He knows the heart, So it's like, man, another servile day. This is Yah's doing, Yah's business. And I know a lot of times we think, well, I can't do it. Either way, it's not good, but the worst thing you can do is do it but complain all the way. Oh man, miss another day of work. Oh man, God, you gonna keep the feast? You calling up everybody? I don't know if I'm going. You going? And just that type of attitude and stuff. Oh no, don't worry about it. Just stay home. Don't. Just stay home. Don't. I mean, that is the mindset. Then you've already missed out, because this is something that's centuries, millenniums old. But yeah, I can't keep this time. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. I just wasn't prepared. I can't. That's different when you throw yourself on the mercies of Yah. Then I'm gonna take it off, and you upset the whole time, and you can't enjoy it, and then that spirit rubs off on somebody else, and then you messed up the whole feast. You should not have done it. You should not have done it, because this is the time where we're supposed to. I want to hit on something, because after this feast, there's a countdown. There's a countdown. And what do you think we're counting down to? The Day of Atonement. The Day of Atonement. So there's a countdown. That's why this month is special, because there's a national holiday coming up to where we ought to be so thankful that our sins were atoned. But there's a preparation that you have to go through as you go to that 10th day. So not only was the shofar and the trumpets was sounding, because it's a new month, it's a 7th month, it's a time we're supposed to enjoy and feast and everything, but then coming out of that, we know, okay, I got to start looking inwardly. Oh yeah, I got to look at me. And y'all heard me say it before. That one time we did atonement, I was listening to all these sins, because these were the sins of Yasharel. Because I was looking, man, I didn't commit that sin. That's it, But that was the sins of Yasharel. When you see the sins of Yasharel, then you might understand why Yah just gave. Say, I'm done with these people. I'm done with these people. So in that countdown, as we count down to the 10th day, the Day of Atonement, to where we're going to, he even said on that day, on that 10th day, you have to afflict yourself. There's a fast that goes on that day, and it's going to be a 24-hour fast. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, because I don't want to explain it tonight, but I will explain it on when we're going to keep the affliction part of atonement, when we keep that part of it to where we fast. But I don't want to talk about it tonight. But yes, you have your hand up? Okay. So it is a countdown, and it's the preparation. I should be looking inwardly at me, I'm not looking at my wife. I ain't looking at my Isha. I ain't looking at my kids. I got some bad grandkids. I ain't looking at that. I'm looking at me, because when you look at the atonement, it was the atonement for a nation. If he atones for you, he can atone for your children. He can atone for your grandchildren. He can atone for your neighbors. He atoned for me. He atoned for Yasharel. And this is something that we have to look at when we look inwardly, individually. But what I see in me, that same sin might be in somebody else. So if he atoned for me, why can't he atone for them? So we have to look at, and we'll do that countdown, and we'll look at it. And like it says here in Hebrews 10 and 25, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. And I know a lot of times we think that this is talking about, the gathering of Yasharel, the end of the world. We know it's coming and everything. So we should be on fire when we assemble ourselves together. It's kind of misdirected, because all of the feast days were supposed to be a time of Jubilee. The time of Jubilee. It's a time of feasting and so, how many people know what 1 Corinthians chapter 11 deals with before you even turn in there? What is it? 1 Corinthians chapter 11? That's chapter 13. Chapter 11. The faith? Hebrews chapter 11, yeah. Hall of Fame of Faith. 1 Corinthians chapter 11? Yes. He was dealing with a feast of Pesach and unleavened bread, because it was the time of our Messiah's, and we're not, I'm just going to say this. He had the preparation. They had to go and prepare for the Pesach, because he was the Passover. So he had to die that day. So it was the night before, or the day before, where he took his last meal. Okay, so at that particular time, they said, where should we go to prepare? It was a preparation. He says, well, and that night, we're going to do it that night, the day before, because the next day, he was the Passover, and Jerusalem was hysteria. I mean, it was a near riot. I mean, it was all, but in the 11th chapter, they were talking about Pesach, the feast of Pesach. And it was a time where they would to come together and it was a celebratory time. But they misused it and abused it. And so Saul had to straighten them up. He had to tell them, y'all doing it for the wrong reason, because when we have a feast, we shouldn't expect somebody who don't have nothing. Well, you ain't got nothing. I guess you ain't eating. And we tell folks, eat what you bring. Well, all I got is a piece of bread. Well, I guess that's all you're going to eat. Sometimes that's how we are. I know that's how we are. I know sometimes that's how we are. And Paul had to deal with some stuff. Y'all feasting and folks hungry. So it was supposed to be spread, because some of us, he's really blessed, and some of us, he may not have blessed as much. Does that mean they shouldn't take part of the feast? So there was some correction. And plus, as Corinthians, they didn't really know how to do it anyway. Paul was trying to instruct them on keeping the Passover, and he even talked about even that night when our Adonai, he took his last supper, and he took the bread and he took the cup, and he told them what that represented. That was done on the preparation up to Pesach, because he was the Passover. Anyway, so and so much the more as you see the day approaching, and so we see Pesach. Now we got to get the dates out for next year, for 2025, but these dates should be on your calendar, and you should see the days coming. I mean, like, okay, we've been talking about, we've been doing this for how many years now? So every year we should prepare. Okay, this is Pesach, this is unleavened bread, first fruit. This is Shavuot. This is Teruah in the 7th month. I know. As soon as we get close to the 7th month, there's 3 feasts in the 7th month. Hey, you going to the feast? There, we got to get together on this. And he says we're to exhort one another. Hey, y'all, we got to keep the feast now. We're supposed to keep. Well, Constantine said we don't have to keep it. Well, that's Constantine. He didn't keep it. That's him. We ain't Constantine. Well, the Christians church, they don't keep. Well, that's them. We're supposed to keep it. They're just following Constantine. All of our leaders, I never knew what Constantine said till I looked it up myself and start doing some research on the post-apostolic fathers, and I still got them in here and just doing a lot of research. Then nobody told me about that. They didn't tell me about that. I thought we was going on the right road because that's what I was taught, and that's this culture. And so when I read that and understood that, and I was awakened, I repented. I repented. And I asked for forgiveness, and I repented. But he says we're to exhort one another. And a part of that exhorting is me making sure I get those dates out there for you so that you are fully aware and because I tell you, you keep the Feast of Sukkot, it'll change your life. It'll change your life. And since, well, we had, was it 2021? Was that the first time in Kickapoo? Was it 2021? It was after that. Was it? 22. Okay, 2021 was Kickapoo, and then 2022 was Bloomington. 2023 was Indianapolis, and this is 2024. This is our 4th Sukkot, keeping the Sukkot. And I learned something all the time. And I want to say this. Abba Yah gives revelations in Torah. And that Torah is written in the prophets and the ones that he selected. Revelation is not coming from Constantine. It's not coming from him. I haven't, I was thinking about this as it dropped in my mind, because I haven't listened to a Christian teacher or preacher in a while. I don't listen to him. So I was going, well, maybe I'll go listen to this brother. Just maybe something's changed. I don't know, because I don't listen to him. And I think I haven't yet, but maybe, I always say, well, one of these first day of the week when I got some time, and I'm a tune in just to see it. But there's no revelations given unto them. They don't have the revelations. They don't have it. You don't have no new revealing coming out of Constantine Creed, Constantine Christianity. You don't have no new revelations coming out. They'll tell you the same thing over and over and over again. It's parroted, it's repeated. But in keeping of the Torah and keeping of the feast, there is revelation. He is speaking, and he speaks through our faithfulness unto him, if you truly believe it. The world is being set up right now as I speak. And I don't think it'll happen before Sukkot, because I think that's a commanded feast for us to keep, or maybe that's when he's going to actually come and get tabernacle with us, is at this Sukkot. I don't know. I do believe it is getting that close. I do. How come you believe it's getting that close? Because of what's going on over there in Lebanon, Gaza, Israel, how that's going to spread, what's going on in Ukraine. Yes. Yeah, they're preparing. They're preparing now, and they're another thing. They're shutting down all the national parks. I think there's like 63 national parks, and they're shutting those down. But they always shut those down if there's a government shutdown. And October 1st, if they don't have something, you know, uh, the what do they call it? If they don't have a budget, the government will shut down. And it has before. It's not the first time. It has before. But I'm surprised that they're shutting down parks already. This is the 25th, right? And so, I mean, it's close to October 1st. So maybe they're just trying to tell them, hey, y'all, pack it up, get ready, because October 1st, if we don't have a budget, y'all going home anyway. So I don't know, if all of this is coming into play, but there's a lot of things behind the scenes that is going on right now that should be sending up flares and alarms, that should be telling you, hey, y'all, this is really getting close here. But and that's why trumpets is so important, because there is the sounding of the trumpet that's going to take place when he gathers Yasharel, when he gathers us from the four corners. We can see that, right? Matthew 24, and I think it's verse number 31. Let's take a look at that. Matthew 24, verse 31. Well, let's look at this. Let's look at this. I'm going to start with verse 29. Matthew 24, 29, 30, and 31. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from Shamaim, and the powers of the Shamaim shall be shaken. Notice now, there's no pre-trib rapture. So all of that teaching by the Constantine Christians that there's a pre-teen rapture or pre-trib rapture, that's contrary to what Yahusha says. Because remember, Constantine says, I don't want to have nothing to do with that. All of their feast days, their Sabbaths, he said he don't even want to be found eating with them. Because at their Shabbats, they would get together and they would feast. At their feast days, every new moon, they would feast. They had the weekly feast, you had the monthly feast, and then you had the 7 feasts. And so they did come together, eat. And didn't we read that? Hey, I don't even want to eat with them. I don't want another feast. I don't want to eat with them. And then, so we have preachers and teachers talking about they got a revelation. We ain't got to keep no all that. We don't have to keep the law and all that. That comes from Constantine. There ain't no new revelation. I got a revelation. I go into Yahushua Mashiach or Jesus Christ, I'm at rest. No, that ain't no new. He ain't got no revelation, because what he was dealing with was Jeremiah 6:16. That's what he was dealing with when he talks about you enter into your rest. We enter into our rest when we keep Torah. I'm going to get that for you. I'm going to come back here. I know, well, where is he going? Where's he going? Jeremiah 6:16. We're going to go back. I'm going to work my way back. Thus saith Yahuwah, stand ye in the ways and see and ask for the old paths. Where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. That's what Yahusha was dealing with when he said it in Matthew 11:29. Come unto me, all ye labor and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light, and ye shall find rest for your soul, because he's going to take us back to the old paths. He's going to take us back to the old paths. And the old paths ain't 1920, ain't 1940, ain't no old paths. We're going back to Torah. That's the good way, And that's where we're going to find rest. So when they say, well, when I got saved, I found my rest. No, the rest is right here. Old paths, good way, walk in that, and you find rest for your soul. But they said, like they say today, I ain't walking in that. It's right there, ain't it? But they said, we will not walk therein. Oh, okay. Also, I set watchmen over you, saying, hearken to the sound of the trumpet, blow the shofar, sound the alarm. Lift up your voice like a trumpet and show my people their transgressions, and the house of Jacob their sins. That's why I give you watchmen. But what did they say? We ain't going to hearken. Nah, we ain't going to do it. So what you see today going on with people today, it ain't nothing new. Israel been doing that for a long time. We're about the only nation that'll kill our king. If you ever study the kings and history and stuff? Man, you don't rise up against you rise up against the king. That's it. You know? So, I mean, the king had that authority, that law, that rule. We're a nation that killed our own king. And after we did it, we said, well, let the blood be on our children. Isn't that terrible? That's why I thank y'all every day. I'm up at 5, my alarm, is it 5 o'clock every day? I'm up, I'm praying. Thank you, y'all. Abba, Yah, Toda Rabbah, Baruch Yom. I'm up early, saying, thank you, Yah, a blessed day. I just, I got to tell them. Because the way Yasharel has been down through the years, generations and families and stuff, and you see it so profound today, I don't know. We got to pray for our households. I mean, I pray for mine. Everybody here, pray for your house. We got to pray for our households. We got to pray for our children. We got to pray for our grandchildren. We got to pray for our neighbors. We got to pray for them. I wouldn't give up. Some of us are here because somebody prayed for us. That's why I'm here. My mama never stopped praying. She never stopped praying. Those prayers go up, and Abba Yah hears those prayers. So back to Matthew, where we were, Matthew 24. I want to finish this up here. And then verse number 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in the Shamaim, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Ben Adam, Son of Man, coming in the clouds of the Shamaim with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels, his malaks, with a great sound of a shofar or teruah. The teruah is going to sound. So we're practicing. We're preparing for this. Because we know, as we keep the Feast of Teruah, what we're saying is, Abba Yah, I believe this. This is going to happen. I don't know what day, because nobody knows what day. Even Yahusha said, in the book of Mark, Yahusha says, I don't know. It wasn't even given to the Son of Man. He's talking about himself. Only Father knows. Because some people say Yahusha is all-knowing. He's G-O-D. He's all-knowing. He didn't know that. He said that himself. It's not a slight against him. That's what he said. I don't know the day. Abba Yah kept it from his only begotten Son. So we don't know the day nor the hour, but by us being faithful, what we're saying is, Abba Yah, I believe this is going to happen. I believe it. I believe it's going to happen. I know I do. I believe this is going to happen. There's going to be a sound of the trumpet. The Malaks are going to come, is going to gather his people, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, which is the four winds is north, south, east, and west. So from the four corners, he's going to gather his people. And he says, from one end of the Shamaim to the other. Because now he's saying something different. There's two different things there. From the four winds, and then from one end of the Shamaim to the other. So there's something that is in there that I don't know if we fully have a complete understanding on. Yeah, because they were translated. Well, they seen Elijah go up, and Enoch was translated. So there's some things that that's hidden from us that we don't have full revelation on. Doesn't mean we won't get it. Eventually, we stay faithful to Him and keeping His Torah. Doesn't mean we won't get it. But there's some deep things. That's what Shaul found out. The deep things of Elohim. Yes. Yeah. They have their role and their part. Yeah. hmm The Malaks. Yeah. Yeah, because it says in verse number 30, he's coming in the clouds of the Shamaim with power and great glory. So, yeah, his angels are gathering. hmm Right. And there might be some phases in there. Um, I'm not saying it's going to happen instantaneously. Boom, boom, boom. That's how it's going to be, because there might be some phases in there um, that might need a deeper understanding, because it's the angels that's going to do the gathering of his people, but then his people are going to see. Well, every tribe on the earth is going to see him, but I think we're going to see him after the gathering. That's just from my understanding, reading Torah and everything. Once he gathers us, it's after we're gathered as a nation that we're going to see our King. Um, I mean, when you take this in context with all the other from Torah all the way through this time, because what Yahusha says here, Shaul or Moses said, he said the same thing. Yeah, 4:16. hmm Yeah, which is right. Which there's those are two different phases, I think, just by seeing that. Because when you read that and then you read what's in Revelation, because there's more than one trumpet. Yeah, there's different trumpets, which I see that as different periods of time and what happens with that period of time or that time that trumpet sounds, what happens at that time. Yeah. So let's go to First Thessalonians 4:16, and this is dealing with a trumpet too. That's why it's so important to keep this feast, is because there's trumpets involved. There is the sounding of the trumpet. So as we keep this feast, we're believing that there's going to be a trumpet sound that's going to gather us. I believe that day is coming. I believe that day is coming. 1 Thessalonians 4:16, for Yahusha himself shall descend from the Shamaim with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of Elohim, and the dead in Mashiach shall rise first. Then we which are alive remain shall be caught up together with him in the clouds to meet Yahusha in the air, and so shall we ever be with Yahusha. So when he descends, now there's the shout from the Shamaim, the voice of the archangel, and I'm not convinced that's just the speaking voice. That's more of the carrying out of their role. It's the carrying out of the role of the angels. Because what's the angels' role? Well, they're going to be gathering his people, and the trump of Elohim. And Shaul says this here, but he also says in 1 Corinthians 15 that it's at the last. All of this is going to happen at the last trump. So at the last trump, that's when mortal is going to put on immortality. That's when that change is going to happen instantly. Corruption is going to have to put on incorruption. That which is earthly is going to be heavenly. I mean, you're going through that. That's that transition from what we are now to what we're going to be. But he said it's going to happen in a moment, in twinkling of an eye. But I don't think that's going to happen right when we're gathered. That's my understanding. I'm not saying, I don't think that's going to happen when we're gathered. Because you have to look at what he says in Ezekiel, the 20th chapter. Because in Ezekiel, the 20th chapter, there's a period of time that goes through where you're going through stages and periods of time for Yasharel in Ezekiel chapter 20. Because there's the gathering of his people from the four corners, and he takes them to a place like he took them out of Egypt. He gathers them and takes them to the place, and I believe at that time that he gathers and takes us to the place, that's when you're going to see the fallout of all these missiles and the destruction and everything. We're going to be in a safe place. We're going to have a place of refuge. But in Ezekiel chapter 20, starting at verse number 33, you start to see how he breaks things up and how you got the gathering. And then he's going to take you to a place, to the wilderness of the people. And then what is he going to do there? He's going to plead with you face to face. And he's getting rid of all the rebels and transgressors. And that goes along with the parable of Yahusha when he says he cast out a net and caught a great deal of fish and brought them to shore, and then he sorted. He sorted through it. So just because you was in that net and you came to shore didn't mean you was going to make it. Yeah, it doesn't mean you're going to make it. Because he says after going through that sorting process, he says then that's when his elect are going to go into the promised land, the land of Canaan. And I think that process of going from the period of judgment into the promised land, that's when you're dealing with, it's a different, I just don't think it's going to happen all at once. There's some things that's going to happen in there. So for us to get, there's stages before we get to the land that flows with milk and honey, that covenant land that he promised Abraham. There's going to be some stages because there's a lot of people coming back from the dead, but he's dealing with those that he gathers first. So there's some people coming back from the dead. Then you're going to have those. If you survive that, then you'll probably be the ones who are, okay, here comes the resurrection of all those who like died in the Mashiach and everything like that. And we're all going to be, and I think that transition to where we translate it into eternal life, I think that transition is kind of like that moment of twinkling eye where, we're going to be, because there's no rapture in the Bible, but where we're going to be caught up. And that's how Paul describes it. We're going to be caught up. And he does say, meet him in the air, because there's going to be the moving from the wilderness into the promised land. Also, here's something else you got to consider, is the destruction of this world, right? because in Peter, he says, the whole heavens and the earth is all going to melt with fervent heat. Then there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. So where we're going to be in that process? Well, there's got to be a place where we're going to be, because you don't want to be here on earth. And yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a new heaven and new earth, because that new heaven and new earth has to be here before that city comes down, because the city's not coming down on this present earth. Because once these folks get done throwing these missiles at one another, I mean, have y'all seen Gaza? No, it's going to be. Do y'all know when they drop those bombs, you know what it does to the soil and to the land and stuff? Even when they had that meltdown over in, what is it, Chernobyl, whatever, wherever it is, that's still being affected today. We dropped some helium bombs, or what kind of bombs were those? It's not the kind of bombs they're making now, over Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and look at what the devastation. Look what it did to that land. You lose your vegetation. It's desolate. All kinds of. They're dropping bombs, blowing stuff up now, and they're just starting this. But he says, I'm not going to let you destroy this world. I'm going to destroy it. They might think they could destroy the earth with their missiles. He says, no, I'm destroying this earth. I'm going to do it. And then once he does it, like it says in Peter and Kepha, it's going to melt with a fervent heat. Then he says there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. And so there's that process of time where we go from where we are now into that new heaven and that new earth. And then the city of the Shamaim is going to come down on the new earth. So you ain't going to see that city, not until this world is destroyed. Even the saints, or those who are going to have residency in that city, you ain't going to see it until after this old earth. And how did Kepha say? It's going to roll away like a scroll. I mean, it's going to melt with fervent. Then there's going to be then he's going to have a creation, new heaven, new earth. And so that's what we get to dwell on, and the city comes down. So there's a lot of things that's got to happen. But as we keep the Feast of Teruah, we know that we're practicing for these trumpets that are coming. It's a time to wake up and say, hey, this thing is pretty close. Man, this is at the door. This ain't no time. I can't figure out why folks give up. Man, something's not wired right up here. When folks want to give up, we're getting so close now. And it says, Shaul says, for I reckon that this present time is not even, or the present sufferings. Yeah, well, let's get that. I want to quote it right. Romans 8 and what is it, 28, I think? No. What is it, Romans 8? For 18, Romans 8:18. And this is what Shaul was saying. And so we got to get this in our minds. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time not worthy to even be compared to the glory which shall be revealed in us. So how could anybody want to give up? That don't make sense. Because whatever the world offers us, it's not even worthy to be compared to what's coming and the glory that's going to be revealed in us. It's not even worth it. But I know it's difficult because we were all young once, right? And you couldn't tell us nothing. My dad told me, you at the age of ignorance. I turned 18, I thought I knew it all. Oh, you at the age of ignorance. If I could only be 18 again, because then I knew it all. Because I don't know it all now. What happened? After all these years, I lost all this. But y'all know how he was when we was teenagers and stuff, man. You couldn't tell us nothing. You couldn't tell us nothing. And a lot of our teenagers, that's how they are now. But somehow we got to wake them out of sleep. We got to wake them up and say, oh, no, you don't want to stay there. You don't want to deal with that. Come out of that. And the best thing that we got to do is live a life before them. Just live a life before them. show them the power of Yah in our life, the faithfulness that we have towards Yah. It does resonate with them. They might not think it now, or they might not show it, but it resonates. It's resonating. Your faithfulness unto Yah, and they'll eventually come around. But Feast of Teruah is a time where we should be exhorting one another. I'm gonna look at that again in Hebrews 10:25, and he says we should be exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. And I know a lot, we always thought about that's the end time. That's the end time. No, we should be exhorting one another at the time for us to assemble. At the time, and we assemble on the Shabbat. We're supposed to assemble on the new moon, feast of the new moon. You got the weekly Shabbat, the weekly feast, the monthly feast, and then you got the seventh feast. And we should be exhorting one another. You got to get there. You got to be there. We're going to feast. We're going to come together. We're going to have a what did he say in Leviticus 23 and 24? It is a holy convocation. Hey, that should get us excited. This is a holy convocation. That holy means it's set apart. Y'all know we set apart. Christian church don't do this because we set apart.